Hey, Miss Bonnie girl. Oh, girl, you looking cute today. Good morning. All right, hurry up and get your smock on. Okay, I'm finna put my smock on right now. Right now. Thank you. Good morning, Miss Bonnie. So, what are we learning today? Good morning. We're gonna be doing hair cutting today. Okay. Oh, let me take my hat off. Hi, Miss V. No hat, no hood on today. Good morning, Amber. I see. You look good without your hat, see? Now you look like a Cosmo to me. What are we doing? Hair cutting? All right. All right, everybody. So this morning, we're going to get started on hair cutting. And first, we're going to do a little bit of theory about hair cutting. And then I'm going to demonstrate after the break a solid haircut, also known as a 0 degree or no elevation haircut. All right. So we're going to get started with that. And then later in theory, we're going to be talking some more about anatomy and physiology, which I know you guys can't wait for that. All right, so let's get started here. All right, the first thing on my table setup is an all-purpose comb. I have my shears. And what I'm showing you here is the front of the shears that should be facing you when you're cutting. So you have the tang there, which is what your pinky will rest on. And this little tightener in the front is where you would place the tool that comes with your shears to actually tighten that if it's needed. So what I'm going to show you is the plastic clips. You have 4 of those on your table setup, your spray bottle. And here's a side note. Never use a rat tail comb for cutting. You use an all-purpose comb, a barber comb. Combs for hair cutting, not rat tail combs. So I wanted to show you, hopefully you get a clear picture here of how you properly place your shears on your fingers. You want to enter your ring finger, which is not going past your cuticle. The pinky goes on the tang, the other 2 fingers go on the top there, and then your thumb goes in the bottom there, but it doesn't go past your cuticles. And you are only cutting with your thumb. So you are not chopping down from both sides. Don't do that. Okay, so now we're going to get started with sectioning. The key that I want you all to get in the habit of is palming your shears and being in the habit of being able to have control of the hair. Now what I'm showing you here is palming your shears. Now when you're palming your shears, your ring finger is actually pushed up a little more. You want to have the comb in the same hand that you're holding your shears in, because a lot of students will try to cheat and have their comb in the opposite hand while they're palming their shears, and that's not how you do. But you want to get in the habit of combing that hair with the shears palmed correctly and also being able to wet the hair down. So that's just what I'm showing you here. See, I'm holding the spray bottle in the same hand, and it's not uncomfortable once you get in the habit of that. And she has a lot of hair here, but we're going to get through it. And what I'm doing is I'm sectioning her hair down the middle from hairline to nape. And then it's going to go from ear to ear. So your basic 4 sections, the same type of 4 sections you would do for hair coloring, for relaxer, or any other type of service like that. And honestly, I usually don't teach the 4 sections like this. I usually clip all of the hair up, because when you're training for state board, this sectioning here where the hair is just left loose is not acceptable. You don't want to do that. But being that this is not state board, and I kind of didn't want to deal with the hassle of that, because I'm going to go back and drop down my guide, I just sectioned it like this. But you'll see what I mean when I twist it all up. That's technically how you want to section, especially when you're prepping for state board. So I got my 4 sections in. And then I'm going to start doing my guide. And I'm just showing you hairline to nape and ear to ear. Now, here's the thing. My guide is no thicker than 1/2 inch, no less than 1/4 inch. So you don't want it too thin, but you don't want it to be too thick either. Because when it's too thick, it ends up being more of the hair, and it's not a guide. So you're kind of just like going in, cutting a lot of the hair, whereas the guide will slowly guide you through the haircut. So remember, this is a beginning haircut when you're just starting off. All right, so look at that there. The guide is not too thick and it's not too thin, because when it's too thin, that's not really a guide either. So between 1/4 inch and 1/2 inch in width, just so you know. And this is what I mean here when I'm twisting up all the hair. And no, you don't have to twist it like I do. This is just how I do. And don't ask me how I do it. I've just been doing it for so long, it just happens. So you'll find your own way on how you twist the hair up, and you'll, yeah, have your own way. Sorry for my arm being in the way. And these are your 4 sections with your perimeter guide let down. All right, so now we're going to get ready to cut our guide. And I think I cut like 2.5 inches to 3 inches. Yeah, about 3 inches. This is what I want to cut. And that's just to give the hair a little more healthy appearance. And my wrist is bent forward, not like way forward, but just coming straight towards the hair. And now some people actually have their wrist tilted up, and that's fine as long as the hair is brought straight down and your fingers are slightly tilted up. What I was showing you there is that hair that was behind my second knuckle, you don't want to cut past that. So what I did was I regrouped the hair with some of the hair that I just cut, and that's going to be my guide to continue around. 1, 2, and then palm my shears, and I'm going to regroup some hair with a piece of hair that I just cut, and then it's 1, 2, and then you regroup. So you just kind of got to get in that habit as you have more practice. Another thing you want to practice too is not so much going around your client, but really bringing your client to you. And that's all part of your ergonomics. So I'm bringing that hair straight down. And I'm showing you how some people cut with their wrist flexed up, and that's quite all right. Okay, so now I'm moving to the front part of my guide and checking that to see if there's anything I need to cut. And I'm showing you the difference there. So I'm cutting that. Now in the front, that part right there, that hair was actually a little shorter than the rest of the guide, so there was really no need for me to cut anything, and that's what I'm showing you. So then I'm just going around and double checking everything, making sure it's even before I start the cut. So a couple of things I want to tell you about doing a solid haircut or a blunt haircut, a 0-degree haircut. One thing is about your posture, and this is what I constantly stay on the students about. You want to make sure that when you're grabbing the hair, that you're not leaning over to one side or putting your weight all on one side. So you want to make sure that your feet are shoulder width. You want to, I don't know if you can see me or not. Let's scoot over a little. But you want to make sure, I'm not going to show my feet, but make sure your feet are shoulder width. Make sure you're standing straight. Make sure that your knees are not locked. So even though you're standing straight, your knees are slightly bent. You want to make sure that your client or your mannequin, that her head is straight. All right. Let me scoot her back just a little. This is so hectic. I got to get a camera soon. So in other words, if you see her head, it might be slightly tilted, just a little. Okay, that's better. You want to make sure that her head is straight. So her head, in other words, is not slanted down at all. Her head is straight up. And when you're doing a real client, you want to make sure that when she's sitting in your chair, that she is sitting like this. She's not looking down at the magazine. She's not texting on her phone. And if she needs to text on her phone, then just tell her ahead of time to kind of let you know, like, okay, let me know when you need to use your phone, okay? Because she might be a businesswoman, he might be a businessman, and he may need to answer some text, but let them know that ahead of time, because if they have their hair tilted, their head tilted in any way, then when you bring that head back up to check your haircut, which is coming straight down, it's going to be off. When you get to the front side, if they're like this, then when you bring their head up and you comb that hair straight down, it's going to be off. It's not going to be a blunt cut. So these are little things that you want to know, because this is one of the easiest haircuts, but it's very intricate in that it's the little things that determines whether it's going to be a good haircut or not. So that's all I wanted to let you guys know. Make sure that when you're doing your mannequin that she's straight. Make sure that you're straight. And remember, you're using your mannequin stand to turn her head the way that you need it to go. In other words, you're not doing this around your client. You're making her come, or him, I'm sorry, I say her all the time. You're making them come towards you. And that's why in the salons and in the schools, you have chairs that go up, that pump down, that turn and lock for your convenience, for your ergonomics, right? All right, let's continue. This hair here is either yaki hair or it's synthetic mixed with human. It's not 100% human like it claimed. Sometimes if the hair goes too far down, and I know like in the classroom, the students have like, well, the old classroom that I had, they had a countertop that they worked on, so it was lower than them. So sometimes they had to lower themselves in a squat-like position. Because you don't want to be humped over like this, because you're going to be doing this for years. So you don't want yourself to compromise your back at all. So let me lower this so you guys can see what I'm doing. My subsections are horizontal. And just remember, in my design lines that I talked about a while ago, horizontal lines add weight. So when you're doing a blunt haircut, such as a bob, and I'm talking a solid bob where there's no layers, it's a weighted haircut. The reason why is because the subsections are horizontal. So I'm bringing it straight down. And you should be able to see your guide within the longer hairs. If you cannot see your guide, then that means your subsection is too thick. So thin out your subsection. 1, 2, regroup. 1, 2. Now, if you feel more comfortable and you want to go across on both sections, because remember now, this haircut is for beginners, assuming that you've never done this haircut before, or you're learning it in freshman class and you want to practice it at home, and you really don't have too much experience with this, but you feel comfortable enough to go across both back sections, you can do that. So I'm going to cheat a little and just kind of catch up. If you don't feel comfortable, then you do one section at a time. And that's quite all right, because you're beginning, you're learning, and you don't want to be overwhelmed. And that is okay. You want to keep the hair damp. Remember, the hair stretches up to 50% when it's damp. Also remember that if you allow the hair to dry, especially here on the mannequin, the hair shrinks, right? So it may appear that your haircut is off, but because you allowed the hair to dry, some of it is shrunk and some of it is still stretched out, and you'll continue to cut hair and you'll be off on your haircut. You don't want that. Your subsection should be between 1/4 of an inch up to 1/2 an inch, really no thicker than 1/2 an inch. But I do mine's about 1/4 of an inch, just to make sure that I can see my guide, especially when I'm demonstrating this. And just know that, like I said, if you can't see your guide, then thin out your subsection. And I just want you to know too that when you are doing this cut, the more experience you get, the more comfortable you are and the more control you have of the hair. So you will probably not section like this at all. But just remember, this is to help you while you're beginning, so you don't get lost. Make sure you can see the whole thing. And there's my guide. So now I'm going to cut this longer hair up to my guide. So we're just going to continue on all the way up horizontally. So let me finish. Also, what I wanted to tell you guys too is once you get towards the top, and I'm talking on a mannequin, a human being, most of the time it's easier, of course, and the hair does have the length to go all the way down. But on your mannequins, because of the way that they're prepared, or you know, the way the machines put them in, unless they're hand laid, usually when you get to that upper part here, the hair is shorter. So that means that by the time you get up here, you really aren't cutting anything. Also, what I wanted to tell you before I forget is when you are cutting on a person, a solid haircut, and I think a few times I failed to mention this to my freshmen in the beginning, and then I remembered. Very important point. When you are starting off with your guide, right? Let's say if this is your first haircut on the floor, so you're following everything you learned in freshman class. Well, let's say you didn't do the front part. Let's say you parted off the back guide. Well, in the back, in the nape area, what I want to show you is sometimes when you part that guide off, sometimes the hair, let's see, can you see that? Sometimes the hair back here in that very bottom part is shorter, right? For instance, let's say it goes to here. And that's because she wears her hair up in ponytails, so that hair is broken off back there. So what you would do is you would section off the next piece of hair above that, that's longer, over that shorter piece, and that would be your guide. Because if she's just coming to you for a trim and her hair is this long and you use that short ponytail broken off hair as your guide for that haircut, it's going to be all bad. Your client's not going to be happy. So I just wanted to let you guys know that is very important, that when your client has that broken off hair, do not use that as your guide. Okay, so now let's get started with the front. And this is going to be to continued, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate your support. See you next time.